This conference will now be recorded.
So, Len sends his apologies. It is Joanne's birthday tonight, and oh, there you go, someone else with the same birthday. Ah, but not the same year. And she, friends are taking Len and Joe out tonight, so he sent apologies. He won't be with us. But as I mentioned, he just sent a really interesting blog post out. Jake, you want to tell him why it's so interesting and what it said?
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to read the whole article. He did include a link, but basically the summary is that people on Lupron, they did a head-to-head comparison looking for cardiac issues, and people on Lupron within the 1-year trial period had a 20% incidence of cardiac, whether a stent, a heart attack or a stroke or whatever, versus 3% for Firmagon, which is very significant.
And again,
other studies said that there is very little cardiac toxicity with either one, but this one apparently does show that Lupron is more significant. So it's got me thinking again. I'm not sure if I'll change it or not since I've been on it so long, but if for people other people who are on it, you might want to very well talk to your doctor about it. 3% cardiac issues with Firmagon, 20% cardiac.
Yeah, and a couple of points. It's a small study. There were only 100 people in the study.
Right.
They were split pretty much equally. The other thing is, again, it is correlative and not causative. They're not suggesting what the reason is for it. That was, of course, my first question: is why would this happen? It's got to be something to do with the way that the drugs work. I would guess because they both do the same thing. They both reduce testosterone. Having said that, they don't explain why. And that probably brings up another issue that we talked about a little bit on Peter's group. And by the way, for those of you who arrived late, we all should wish Peter a happy birthday today. Are you walking out? Are you walking out as we wish you happy birthday, Peter?
No, Peter, no, a little way.
So it's Peter's birthday today, and we, on the call yesterday, on Peter's call, the low and intermediate risk, we actually had a gentleman who was the exact same age, same day, same year. So that was pretty cool. But we spent some time yesterday talking about the other study you may have seen recently about ADT and dementia. And that there seems to be, and this is an old chestnut, it's come up several times before, and if you've seen my blog post, I reference some of the older studies, but there was a large study done, and again, a correlative association was made between more frequent occurrence of dementia, clinically diagnosed dementia. This is not, and we're not talking about Lupron brain here, we're talking about clinically diagnosed dementia for men who had been on long-term or longer-term ADT. I forget how many years. Peter, do you remember how many years to qualify?
I can't remember, but it was older men over 70.
66, men over 66.
Okay.
So we have to watch out with these studies. They're good studies, but a lot of these epidemiological studies are they just draw a correlation and they're not causative. Anyway, let's, I'm trying to think if there's anything else to relate going in. I don't think so. So let me just run down the list. Let me make sure that I have everybody's name written down, and I think I do. I just want to add one more. So we have Jake, Peter, Dennis, Paul Frieda, John, Appler, Sylvester, Jay, John and Sherry, Ken Anderson, and Larry Fish. Did I miss anybody?
Ken Anderson just left.
Okay. He's probably going to be, my guess is Ken will be in and out if he's driving home in the car. So when I see him, we may just catch him and hear about what's been going on and this how he managed on this long hike. So I may just slip Ken in when I see his name. Before I go to everybody, since we haven't heard from John and Sherry for a good while, well over a year, I would guess, why don't we just start with you and give us an update?
Okay. John, come over here. When did you go off I'm John's in far away. He's been on Lupron and Casedex. He started that how many years ago? 3 years ago, and was doing well. His PSA was going down. John had his prostatectomy 17 years ago this month, if you can believe that, 17 years. And he's been doing extremely well through the years. And once he started the Lupron, so he had other treatment between then and Lupron. After maybe a year, the PSA started going up. So he was taken off a Casedex, has just been on Lupron probably 2 years now, and his PSA continues to go down. Last time it was, I can't remember the last check. He goes every 3 months. 0.08, I guess it was then. The doctor is very, very pleased with the progress. We don't know what would be the next step if we need it, but he's telling John there are good things on the horizon for him. I don't know what those good things are, but we're happy with what is going on. And that's all I have to say.
Whoa. So this is great. So basically, he's very stable.
Yes.
Which is good. And I missed one thing. I know he was taken off the Casedex. What drugs is John on right now?
I'm sorry, what did you ask?
What drugs, yes, is he on right now?
Just the Lupron.
Just the Lupron.
Yep.
Okay.
And he was taken off the Casedex when the PSA started rising. And he actually talked to his doctor yesterday via a MyChart message about the ADT dementia. And the doctor had an interesting view, and I don't know if you guys mentioned it, I couldn't hear very well what was being said, is that he feels that this study shows that this dementia, the dementia is occurring for men who the drug is unmasking. They already have the symptoms. It's just being unmasked through many of these drugs that are now, being publicized, amitriptyline and ranitidine, even the whole slew. And he is not as concerned right now. And he told John, do not change anything at this point. He's doing too well.
Yeah, he raises a really good point, and it's actually something that Jake raised yesterday. Because Jake said, well, what if I don't have good memory and I've got these and my brain is slower because of the Lupron. How do I know I don't have dementia? Well, I think what the doc is saying is that when a man comes in and starts complaining about all these things and he's on ADT, they test him for dementia and they find it. And, and if he wasn't on ADT, he probably wouldn't mention that stuff to his doctor and they wouldn't test him.
Correct. Right.
I think that's what the doc's saying. Anybody want to comment on that? No? Jake? Jake may have stepped away.
No,
Peter?
I'm here. Yeah, again, I personally don't know if it's Lupron brain or if I'm the beginning of dementia. I mean, I do have memory issues for sure. I've been on Lupron for over 7 years now.
Mhm.
But I don't know if it is, and I certainly never been tested.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, it's a very good point, and I guess what we don't want to happen is that everybody who is using an androgen deprivation drug suddenly panics and they stop, because that would be a disaster. And I think what the doctor's saying is stick to the course. Don't worry about it. Don't get panicked, and I would endorse that message. But Sherry, this is all great news. Now, how's John doing with the AFib?
The AFib. He actually just had a physical today. He was diagnosed with AFib, I think 3 years ago during a pre-op exam, EKG, and he hasn't had an in 8 months. He was wearing a Zio patch for a while to get a grip, and he had quite a bit of AFib, showing 15%. He's yelling from the eating area. And he has not had an episode that we know of yet. He's on the drug Nadolol, which is a very old and heart rhythm drug. We don't know if Nadolol is doing anything because it's for rate, not rhythm. But he has a cardio device. He takes his heart rate, and he hasn't had an episode in, I bet, 6-7 months. So that's how that's going. But once you're diagnosed with AFib, you always have AFib. You carry that diagnosis forever. That's how they handle it.
Yeah. A really good buddy of mine recently had the intervention where they go up and they cauterize stuff in the heart. They go
ablation.
through the ablation.
Yeah, the ablation. I just had that.
And it's been really successful for him.
Yep.
So,
and he's been communicating with his oncologist about, AFib is the heart condition, because we're all worried about the vascular problems with ADT, and I was glad to see that Firmagon study. But his physician feels the one thing that he can always report or mention to his cardiologist is to always check what's called the QT, Q and T interval, and that shows on an EKG. And that's probably the most important thing he'll be telling his cardiologist every year when he goes in to watch that interval.
So we love these good reports like this. This is a great report that he's gone so well. Just do it just with the Lupron. Has John had any thoughts about going on intermittent and coming off the ADT for a while, see how he feels and watch?
You know, his doctor has always said from day one that would not be an option with John. John had some mets when he went on the Lupron. I was angry because he didn't start Lupron for a long, long time because
Right.
his doctor always said there's no study that says the sooner you start Lupron, the outcome is better. So they waited and discovered some mets in a CAT scan. And those have all disappeared after the Lupron. I mean, you can always see, I'm not saying everything right. I think the one thing that John had to his advantage years ago, when he had the chemo, when that was an option, you know, get the chemo early, he had the chemo when he started the Lupron. So that went hand in hand.
Yeah.
And he also had a clinical trial several years ago, and one of the doctors slipped and told him that they didn't slip, but we knew that he had some successful outcome from the clinical trial. So that's to our advantage also. And I don't know what that trial was.
I know that Peter, are you you're
Yes, I'm
on with us,
listening.
correct?
Listening, yes.
I'm, you know, Peter, you have mets and you're on intermittent right now. I'm not sure why John would not be, I'm curious why John wouldn't be a good candidate for intermittent.
I think we'll ask about that again next time. I know when as the PSA fluctuates over the months, he always said he uses the number 2 as the nadir and doesn't worry about anything until it hits the PSA hits 2. I'm going to ask him about the intermediate again also. I don't mind bringing things up again to him.
I'm going to turn it to Peter in a second. Look, the king of intermittent therapy is Len, but he's not with us today. But originally, what they said was that the best candidates for intermittent are people who are diagnosed with the disease and start ADT early, whereas men who have recurrent disease don't do as well on intermittent. But it seems now, and just from my own anecdotal observations, that it doesn't seem to make a lot of difference. I mean, you get somebody like Len, where the disease never recurred, but he was diagnosed metastatic. And then you get people like Peter, where the disease did recur. So, Peter, what are your thoughts for John on intermittent?
Well, I don't hesitate to second guess this one. I mean, I've personally found it successful. I know it. I still have tolerance. I'm still sensitive to Lupron and so forth, and Zytiga. Yeah, what to do? I certainly feel better doing intermittent. I mean, I feel 1,000% better right now than I did 6 months ago. Got a hell of a lot more energy. I mean, 6 months ago, I couldn't have done a dump run on my birthday and started shingles. Loaded it, right? I crawl around on my roof. I mean, I feel so much better. But I'm mentally prepared if I have to go back on it. So I kind of like the idea of on and off. I've never done chemo or anything like that. So my meds have all so far just been on a couple of abdominal lymph nodes.
Well, I'm not recommending it, but I am saying exactly what you're saying, Sherry. It's worth raising it.
Yep.
Sherry,
we're going to revisit.
What was John's diagnosis originally? Gleason what?
9.
That's pretty amazing.
0.09.
That's pretty amazing.
Gleason?
17 years with surgery. I mean, that's great.
Mhm.
He had a prostatectomy right away, and then radiation therapy. And his PSA started climbing. I don't know. He had, I don't know. I don't know what else to say except we feel lucky right now.
Good.
Yeah. Now, Sherry, are you still posting as high anxiety?
Am I what?
Are you still posting on Inspire as high anxiety?
Yep, that's my name. Yep. I'm not posting, but if I did, I would use that.
Okay, well, we gotta bring that anxiety down, love. That's why I'm asking. So, he's doing great. So, you could change it to low anxiety at this
I
point.
think I might, Rick. Yeah. I think I might.
Okay.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and of course, you're always welcome to join the Caregivers call if ever you want to join that. So, because we don't like the high anxiety, we like the low anxiety. That's what we encourage here.
Yes. And did you hear me say I too was diagnosed with AFib about the same time? And I just had my ablation in April, and
Oh
I'm
no.
doing very, very well.
Oh,
And I
good.
know stress can bring it on. So
Yeah.
so I'm working on the low anxiety.
Good. Okay, that's what we want to hear. And I assume you're still with Dr. Lou at Wisconsin.
Yes.
Okay.
I'll tell you, yeah. I mean, John communicated with him at least 3 times over this ADT dementia issue the last 3 days. And yeah, we think he's a great doctor and is very knows
Good.
his stuff.
Good. Okay. Anyone else would like to have any discussion with John and Sherry before we move on?
Sherry, this is Jake. I would just like to comment that if you decide to try intermittent, of course you're going to watch your PSA to make sure, and then when it starts going up, I tried it once and my PSA did start going up, but then when I went back on the Lupron, it immediately went back right back down. So chances are that will be the same thing that happens to you, and you might get a long enough time where, like with Peter, he can actually feel better for a period. But the Lupron is effective when you restart it. It's worth talking to your doctor.
That's good to know, Jake. I think we're going to mention it to him. Again, we never questioned him when he said he's going to stay on Lupron. But I don't know. We'll ask. We'll get the feelings about that. Thank you for telling me about this. I'd be afraid. Not afraid. I'm glad to hear that the Lupron took it right down.
It did. See, now your anxiety is already lowered.
It is lowered. It is lowered.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. Stay on the line, listen to the other guys, and come back before a year, because we like to hear your voice and we like to support you.
Thank you. Guys, it's almost harder to be every time we go in for an appointment, knowing we've had this for 17 years. It's like, how much longer can we go on and John feel as good as he's feeling? And that it almost gets, it's hard to explain. It's hard to explain. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I mean,
I do.
Doing this for this long.
No, I do, but I have a word of advice, and it's something we're working on here, and we may implement. But the guys have heard me say it a lot recently. But you have to stay in the moment, because if you, somebody said to us recently, if you live in the past, that's depression. And if you live in the future, that's anxiety. So what
Yes.
you have to do is live right now in the present and in the moment. And
Yep,
you have
thank
to
you.
enjoy what you've got for right now. And you've got it good, and you know, don't make yourself crazy about what could happen. You're
Yep.
there. You've got what you want right now, and grab it with open arms.
That would be a nice little quote to put somewhere, Rick, on the website, on Ancan or somewhere.
Yeah. You're right. We may well do that. It was Richard Wassersug who suggested it, but he said it wasn't original to him. So I don't think we have to get his permission. But yeah, we'll you're right, Cherry. We'll put it on the website somewhere. We'll find a place to put it on the website. Okay, let me run down. Ken was here and then he was gone. I think he's, I know he's driving, so he's in and out. So I can't go to him right now. So let me start at the top. Jake, do you need any time? Okay. Peter, would you like any time?
Yeah, I just have a question. Since Firmagon came up, I have a question about that.
Okay. Dennis, would you like any time? Hey, Dennis, would you like any time?
No, I'm doing just fine, Rick. Thank you.
Okay. There was no one on that. I cycled through that course early this morning and there was nobody on that two-back course, Dennis, and it was cool. It was nice and cool.
Yep.
Paul Frieda, anything for you today?
Nothing for me tonight, thanks.
Okay. John Appler, anything for you today?
No, Rick, I'm okay. I'm at the end of my ADT for 2 years and just waiting for testing after that. So I'm okay now.
Oh, well, let's talk to you a little bit. I want to mention something. So I will come back to you if you're at the end of that 2-year period.
Okay, thanks.
Sylvester, anything for you?
No, thank you.
Okay. Jay, anything you'd like to raise?
No, not today.
Okay. Well, can I come to you and ask you what's going on with your uncle? Can I come back to you and ask you what's going on with your uncle?
Sure, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Good.
And we don't have Ken Anderson, and do we? Ken hasn't come back on. And Larry, anything you'd like to talk about?
Sorry, no, Rick, thank you.
Okay. So let me start. Yes.
I couldn't, I lost my video or my audio all of a sudden. I had to restart, go to meeting. But yeah, I have a comment about generic abiraterone if anybody's interested.
Yeah. We'll definitely come to you. I'm going to start with John Appler very quickly because sometimes we lose you after about an hour, and I want to make sure you hear this. So, John, you are at the end of your 2 years on ADT. When was your last shot?
My last shot was on May 15th. So as of August 15th, I'll be free of Lupron. My tentative plan was to wait a month and then start testing. And curious to your thoughts about that, Rick.
Okay. Well, I can only speak from my own experience, which is really what I wanted to do, and tell you how I came back. I stopped in February of 2010, I think it was, Feb of 2010. I didn't register any testosterone until the August. So the May didn't show any testosterone come back, but the August did start to show that it came back. At the same time, as I recall, the May did not show a PSA level, but the August did.
Okay.
I think I was testing monthly at the time, and it took 3 to 4 months. It took 3 to 4 months to see any testosterone, and then the PSA started to climb. Now, I may have mentioned this to you before, but in my case, and this is pretty typical because it was explained to me, I had, similar to you, I had brachy and IMRT and 28 months, but I had seeds. I didn't have high dose, which you did. My PSA rose for a year, for 11 months, constantly, and it went all the way up to 0.96, I think. And the first 3 or 4 times it didn't bother me, and then I started to think, oh, you know, we haven't nailed this. And Mac said to me every time, don't worry, it's going to come down. Don't worry, it's going to come down. And eventually he was right. And it did come down. And then a couple of years later, I was sitting at a table in DC at a conference. And there was a guy called Stephen Frank at the table who was a radiation oncologist at MD Anderson. And he took the back of a napkin, I still have the napkin, and he drew a little diagram for me and he explained why that happened. Now, I had done my research. There's almost nothing on the internet about, or any research about how your PSA responds. There's a lot on how your testosterone responds, but almost nothing on how your PSA responds when you come off of ADT. And essentially, there's a very good explanation. And after the meeting, I will send you a little diagram that I drew up to explain it, and you can call. But essentially, what happens at the end of 2 years is that your PSA goes to the level where it would have been had you not done any androgen deprivation therapy. In other words, if you plotted the way your PSA would decline with successful treatment just from radiation alone, you'd see a bump and then it would gradually tail off. And what he showed me is that when you force the PSA down to 0 and then you release it, it climbs back to the original curve, and then it follows that curve down.
Interesting.
If that's making sense. And I really want to tell you that because I don't want you to have high anxiety. You know, Sherry is going to release that name, and I don't want you picking it up. So, so don't panic if your PSA starts to rise initially.
That's really good to hear. Expectations are great to put in perspective here. Thank you for passing that on. Ironically, my urologist said I shouldn't start testing until about 6 months out. And that sounds like about 6 months out from your stop, you actually started seeing a rise in PSA. So maybe he wasn't crazy, but would you still recommend that I have it tested monthly just the same?
You know, you're a young guy, so your testosterone may come back quicker. I would be certainly testing my testosterone at least every couple of months. And I would probably start testing. How often are you testing your PSA right now?
I'm testing it quarterly.
I'd stick with quarterly.
Okay.
No, I'd stick with quarterly. And I'll send you this little diagram after the meeting. It'll be easier when you see it in black and white. And then you can give me a call and we can go through it together.
I really appreciate it. When you referenced Mac, I assume you meant Mac Roach?
Yeah, exactly.
Good. I look forward to that, Rick. Thanks a lot. And I'll keep my fingers crossed and know what to expect here. So thanks for sending that.
Right. How are you feeling overall after 2 years?
Well, you're really worn out. It's tough to get gumption something. I'm continuing to exercise, so that seems to help. But I do feel a bit worn out. I feel like a much older person than I am chronologically. That's why I tell my kids, you just feel like you're much older than you really are. And I'll be glad to be done with it and start turning things around. So I've gotten through it relatively well, so I'm lucky overall.
I think you will feel better. It took me probably a good 2 to 3 years, and I did have some leftover side effects. But I think it doesn't come back right away. But as you know from Peter, when the testosterone starts coming in, you do feel way better. And I'm sure Diane is waiting to get her man back. She doesn't want you whimpering anymore about your ADT, right?
Yeah, she's had a good sense of humor about it so far. She likes the fact I have less hair on my back.
I see.
Sorry about those details.
No, it's fine. Anybody else wanted to give John any words of advice about his coming off of ADT? Peter, you've come off ADT a couple of times. Can you tell John?
Well, just congratulations. You'll 3 or 4 months, you'll feel a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that in you, Peter. I'm really looking forward just because of that. It's time. It really is.
And just be thankful that you were sensitive to it. It did its work. Some guys doesn't work.
John, you always call in on the phone, so you didn't see it. But a couple of weeks ago, Peter did a little jig for us because he was.
I'm glad I missed that.
I don't know.
He should have been on Dancing with the Stars.
That's right.
All right.
That's right. That, when you get him in your kitchen tomorrow, keep him away from Diane. He'll be walking around the place.
That's right. That's right. Good warning.
Okay. All right. Anyone else?
I'll see you tomorrow, John.
You got it. Thanks, sir. See you then.
Okay. All right. Ken is with us. So, Ken, switch on your microphone. Let's talk to you.
You got me?
There you go. We got you. Tell us about this. How was the hike? How did you manage?
Surprisingly well. I was anticipating to have a problem. In fact, I anticipated my little sister hiking my butt off. But the fact is that I did better than I thought, and I made the entire hike.
All right. How far?
Well, there was 2 legs to the trip. The first leg was Shyside Beach, which is far northwest Washington State, down to a place called Rialto Beach, which was about 40 miles. That was over 4 nights, 5 days. And the second part of the hike was 11 days and 107 miles over, 11 days and 11 nights to 12 days.
Wow. So For those who are listening, this goes to show that after how many years on continuous Lupron? 3?
Well, 27 months.
27 months on continuous Lupron with metastatic disease, you can do a 150-mile hike, and congratulations to you.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So, who wants to talk to Ken? Somebody. So there must be some hikers out there who want to say something to Ken.
That's pretty impressive, pretty amazing. Were you carrying everything on your back for all that time?
We divided it into 2 legs. So the first trip we had 5 days of food and supplies, and the second trip we had 11 days. So yeah.
Wow, impressive, very impressive.
Fantastic.
Well, I can tell you a couple times I thought it was pretty stupid.
Ken, I think I can safely say we are all really, really happy for you. We can also say that you don't have any excuse now. You've got to start your second-line anti-androgen when you get back.
So that's a question for you. Do I do both at the same time? Do I do Provenge and enzalutamide, or do I just do Provenge and then start enzalutamide after I'm partially through Provenge?
Has anybody done the Provenge at the same time as a second-line anti-androgen that's on the call today?
Yeah, I don't know if my insurance company will balk if I start enzalutamide and then tell them that I want to start Provenge.
I don't think so. The two work very differently. They're totally different drugs, and you're entitled to both of them. And we really haven't seen too many side effects from the Provenge other than some hydration issues. We've had a couple of people who, when they introduce the Provenge back into your body, they've had issues and felt really crummy, and they've had to stop the reinfusion and give them a bag of saline and then started it again. And that's been fine. That's worked just fine. I would, if it were me, I don't think I would have a concern. And I don't think the insurance will have a concern. Anybody have any thoughts on or knowledge on that?
I don't have any personal knowledge, Ken, but I don't remember seeing that there's a problem with doing it. I haven't taken Provenge, but I don't believe there's any conflict whatsoever.
Like I know the qualification for Provenge is that you have to have 3 consecutive rises, and I've had 4, and I'm sure tomorrow I go in for my 5th PSA and testosterone test. Well, I've only been on Lupron, and I'm sure I'm going to have another rise. I just don't know how big. I'm kind of keen on doing Provenge because I've done this monstrous hike, and I think my immune system's probably pretty peaked right now. So I do want to do Provenge, but I do understand my PSA is probably going to be around 3. So I should get on with the second line, I guess.
Well, you do realize
I really don't.
The Provenge won't make any difference in your PSA.
No, I understand that.
Okay. A lot of people think it's not working, but it's just doesn't affect PSA that much, if at all. Good luck.
Thank you.
Did you have something to say, Peter?
Say that again, Peter.
You're only talking 2 or 3 weeks with the Provenge, so I mean, it's
Not,
like a
it's
long
six.
delay.
It's like
Oh, it's
6 weeks, Peter. Yeah.
6 weeks,
oh, yeah,
Peter.
2 weeks in between. Okay.
Yeah,
Is it?
yeah, yeah.
Well,
You know,
I think I'll put a call in the Blue Cross. Go ahead.
I'm just wondering. Yeah, you could always ask Paul what he thinks, but my feeling is that if it were me, I would do both at the same time. I mean, we've known guys who have been on enzalutamide and abiraterone, and they've done Provenge, and they haven't had a problem. Like I say, the only problem seems to be it's not when they take it out. What's the name of that process? I always forget. Jake, what's it called?
Leukapheresis. Leukapheresis,
right. So it's not when they do the leukapheresis, it's when they put the back into you that some people have an issue with getting dehydrated.
Right.
All right. Well, I'll probably start Provenge and enzalutamide at the same time.
Okay. All
Good luck,
right.
brother.
Well, we'll talk to you soon. We are so happy. Do you have pictures we can post on the website?
Well, if you'd like to, I can send them to you for sure.
Send us a couple that we can put on. We can stick on the blog.
All right, we'll do.
Yeah, it's
Thanks,
pretty
Ken.
amazing. Pretty amazing, Ken. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, I can remember the first time you called in, kind of, with a very high diagnosis and what to do and where to go and so forth. And it's hard to believe it was, just 3 years ago that was happening.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, it's just amazing to hear how the stability in your voice and your.
Oh, don't get me wrong, Peter. I go mental ballistic pretty dang quick.
So we all do, but our best side is on when we're on the call.
All right. Thank you very much.
Great job. Drive safely. Drive safely.
Rick, before you go on, we have a phone caller.
Yes.
Somebody just joined on the telephone.
Someone on the phone? Someone just came in on the phone? Okay. Well, we saw Tebow come in. Tebow, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hey, we can hear you. We'll give you the promotion to the top of the table too, because otherwise we lose you. We know you. Tell us. We haven't heard from you for a while. Tell us how you're doing. Did you get rid of those shingles first of all?
No. I've had shingles with pretty constant pain for almost 2 months now. It's finally getting better. The pain's diminishing, but it's still bad enough that I'm taking gabapentin, and that makes me pretty tired, so I sleep a lot. And I can't drive when I'm taking that.
Just give everybody a quick rundown and then give us a update on how you're doing.
Well, yeah, lately the shingles has been the main problem. It's so much worse. The shingles pain is so much worse than cancer pain. I miss the cancer pain. My cancer pain is less because I've been on lutetium for, let's see, I've had 3 treatments, 6 weeks apart. And I had my 4th treatment just recently. And the improvement in my PSA from the first 3 treatments is it's gone down by more than 50%. My PSA was 1800 when we started, and now it's down to 800.
Whoa. Okay.
So that's good.
Okay.
My CT scans show that my My lymph nodes are like a quarter the size of what they used to be. Unfortunately, the bone scans still show increased activity, and I do feel pain in my hips that I wasn't feeling before. So everything's not better, but overall, it's been a big improvement.
So, one thing with the bone scans, Thibault, is that the bone scans show activity. And sometimes, and we've known this before, it's hard to know whether that activity is for positive or negative reasons. People are in a situation like yours where they're getting a drug that is reducing the PSA.
Right.
And you might you might be seeing, rather than a growth in the lesions, is a death in there, and it's really hard to tell. And I've known that happen before.
Yeah, hopefully.
Oh, there you are.
I'd say my pain is less overall from what it was before I started lutetium from the cancer, and I also have pain from my laminectomy, and
Right.
strangely, when the shingles was at its worst, it changed the way my laminectomy pain felt. Instead of the like sharp pain that I used to have, it just felt like heat, even though it wasn't actually hot. And a cold pack would actually help make it feel better. And then recently, my laminectomy pain's just gone away completely. So
Could that be anything to do with the gabapentin, do you think?
maybe. Also, I recently started taking Nortriptyline. It's an antidepressant which has been shown to help with shingles pain, especially the kind of pain that lasts after the shingles is gone. They call it post something neuropathy, and hopefully I won't have permanent pain. I hear that if it lasts 12 weeks, it could be permanent. But
Don't
it
even
seems to be
think about
diminishing
that
recently.
right now. So you were getting the lutetium up in Towson, right? Is it that?
Yeah, that's right.
And that's just an independent radiation oncologist there, or radio.
It's a Chesapeake Urology
Okay.
Associates. It's a pretty large urology practice in many locations in Maryland.
Okay, and so and are people randomized in that trial or not? How's that trial work?
Yeah, they give the investigative drug to 2 out of 3, and 1 out of 3 just get monitoring and whatever normal treatments the oncologist thinks is appropriate.
And do you want to share with the guys a little bit about the actual lutetium treatment? I'm sure they'd like to know a little more from somebody who's currently going through it.
Well, you don't feel anything when it's going in, and actually the first time I had additional bone pain immediately afterward for like 10 days. Similar to what I felt when I got high-dose testosterone, and the same way I felt after my docetaxel. But interestingly, that only happened the first time. every other treatment, I haven't had any kind of significant reaction. The second time, I just felt tired for like a week, but the third and fourth time, I didn't feel anything.
Wow. And how long does the infusion take?
It's like a couple hours.
Okay. Any special prep ahead of time?
No.
Okay. So I'm sure there's a bunch of questions and a lot of people that are really happy to see you. Let me throw it up. Let me open it up. Who would like to talk first?
Hi, Tebow. Glad to see you. Looks like your rash has cleared up. That's good to know.
Well, yeah, it looks much better on the front. I've got spots on the back where I don't have hair.
Oh, yeah.
It's basically covered the entire right side of my head. And it's affected, even where I have hair, I had blisters underneath. And so the whole right side of my head is sensitive. There are certain places that are completely numb and other places that are painful.
But better. You say it's getting better.
Yeah, overall the pain is less than it was a couple weeks ago.
That's great. I got to ask you, what's a laminectomy?
They removed the outer portion of several of my vertebrae in the upper part of my spine. They did that because I had a tumor that was pressing on my epidural nerve and causing tingling and numbness in distant parts of my body, and they were worried that if it pressed more that I would be paralyzed. So they wanted to irradiate the tumor, but it was so close to the nerve that they couldn't without irradiating the nerve too much. So the purpose of the surgery was to relieve pressure on that area and allow the nerve to float away from the tumor below it. And then after the surgery, I was able to get radiation to the tumor, and that fixed my neurological symptoms, and it was successful. But laminectomies often have pain that doesn't go away, and I've had that problem.
We're glad you're here. We're glad you joined us again. It's been a while.
Yeah, this last couple months with shingles, I've done almost nothing. I just sleep all the time.
Bro, did you have a shingles shot?
No, I've never even discussed it with anybody because I'm in my 40s, and they generally only give that to people who are older.
Right.
With my,
sorry.
I have my immune system's a bit compromised. My white count's low, and I think it's probably due to the bone marrow transplant that I had at the end of 2017. But my oncologist, says there are other possible causes. Could just be
you had shingles pain, right? In muscles or joints or something?
Shingles manifests as blisters on the skin.
Yeah.
but it's related to an underlying nerve that gets affected.
So you didn't have physical pain because of the shingles. I did. See, I had a bad case of shingles a number of years ago, and the only way I could go to sleep, the pain was so bad in my shoulder that the only way I could go to sleep was take a tennis ball and put it on the other shoulder and create so much pain that I was distracted from the pain in my in the other shoulder, and it lasted for like 6 or 7 weeks. I mean, it was just awful. So if you didn't have any pain, you were really lucky.
Oh, I had lots of pain, but
Where?
I was able to sleep. In my head.
You're lucky.
Did they give you?
I had the bubbles on my back. I also had that too. Yeah.
You don't think you're a lucky, do you, Tebow?
No, I've had a very bad case of the shingles. I could show you photos of my face and neck that are pretty gruesome. It was all the blisters and blood.
That's why I said, yeah, I saw it on Facebook that you shared.
I was actually hospitalized for a week because of it.
Yeah.
How did
Sorry, you're breaking up. What was that?
how did your boys do with being so sick?
Oh, they ask about it occasionally. They say my ear looks like a monster because my entire right ear was covered with blisters at one point, and it still hasn't healed. It's kind of bloody and raw, and I when I'm sleeping, I tend to pick at it when I'm half conscious. So it hasn't healed properly. So the last few nights I've started wearing a Band-Aid on my ear so that I can't pick at it when I'm half asleep.
Okay.
And it's doing better. It's finally starting to heal.
So I'm going to give you another tip on that for that. Just get some cotton white gloves and wear them at night.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
My mother, pretty much throughout the whole of her life, had eczema about it, and she would scratch at night. She wasn't even aware of it. So she would wear white gloves. And so it would, I mean, it didn't stop her rubbing, but it did stop her scratching because she had nice nails and, you know, long nails. And so she could do a lot of damage. So you might want to think about that as well as another possibility. Just get some cotton gloves from the medical supply store and wear them at night. And so could you know, you can't stop yourself, you know, you're asleep. Peter, you had something to say to Tebow.
Yeah, I was just wondering, with all these treatments, were you getting Neulasta shots? Something to build up your white cell count?
Looks like we may have lost Tebow momentarily. I think he just dropped off. It's showing that he's offline, even though his microphone is live. It's possible maybe his phone went or something. He'll be back. When he comes back, we'll go back. When he comes back, I'll come back to you and to Paul, because I know Paul had something else he wanted to say, and anybody else. Let me look and see. Let's go to Jay, and then to Peter, and then to Jake. Jay, how's your uncle doing?
He's doing well. We were lining him up to see Dr. Roach, and then staff called and said they are no longer doing PSMA there.
Right.
And so we discussed looking for a med-onc. Had discussed the one at Duke, and he had also was looking at I can't pronounce his name or remember his name. It's the Greek guy at Johns Hopkins.
Antagonist.
And that's it. And so he got in to see him. They're scheduled for the 23rd of this month.
Okay.
So that's where he is right now.
If he would like to talk to somebody who has seen antagonist, we can make that happen.
That would be great. I think that would be beneficial.
Okay.
So I'll get back in touch with you.
Okay. Susan LaHaye, who is one of our moderators for the Caregivers group, she and her husband saw antagonist, and sadly we lost Ron Silverio, but they loved him. They just loved him. In fact, she was talking about him just the other day. They were not happy with certain aspects of Hopkins, particularly some of the tests they did, and they lost tests and they lost samples and all of that. But she said they just thought antagonist was the cat's whiskers. They were really, really pleased with it. So I will make that happen. I'll send a letter of introduction for you and Susan and go from there. Susan lives in Delaware.
Okay. That's wonderful. Okay.
Yeah. So well, I'm glad. I'm glad you're moving along, and I'm glad that he's chosen a really good med-onc as a quarterback.
Yeah, me too. Me too, very much so.
And you, Mr. Mills, are you doing okay on your ADT?
Yeah, doing fine. Yeah, doing fine. Go for a Firmagon shot on Friday.
Okay. Good. Yep. Good. Are you doing a little more exercise and managing your diet?
Yes, I am. I was spent about 3 hours in 95-degree heat today tearing beach vitex out of the dunes at our house here, so on the beach. So
okay,
worked up a good sweat.
Good. Okay,
yeah, I'm doing fine.
Good. Well, you keep it up, because otherwise you'll have us to report to. You know, we're tougher than the doctors. You know that.
That's right. I know that. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Rick.
Pleasure. Did we get Tebow back? Tebow, are you back with us?
My phone, my laptop crashed, so I'm on my phone now.
Okay. So let me go back to Peter, because he wanted to say something to you. Peter.
Yeah, Tebow, I was just wondering, with all the treatments you have, were you always getting Neulasta shots for the white blood cells or not?
I got that during my bone marrow transplant for a little while, but that was the only time.
Okay, because I have a buddy here who reacted pretty heavily to that with bone pain.
Yeah, that is known to cause additional bone pain. It was not a major reaction for me. I've had bigger reactions from other things.
Okay. Paul, you wanted to follow up.
Well, no, I was just curious about his shingles experience, because mine was gruesome. But I can greatly empathize with your struggle with shingles, because it's I had never heard of it before, and I just couldn't believe what a mess it made of my life for almost 2 months. And the doctors couldn't do anything. They didn't have any vaccine or anything at that time. This was back in around 2006 or something like that. So anyway, I'm sorry to hear that you got it in addition to all your other problems, and thankful that it's all over. So.
I had they had me on high dose intravenous acyclovir antiviral treatment while I was in the hospital, and then I kept that up with pills, and I left the hospital, and I'm still on the gabapentin to deal with the nerve pain, and I'm hoping that the pain will diminish enough that I can stop the gabapentin and then have more awake hours to be more active.
Yeah. No,
I have a question.
Yes.
Is it beneficial? Somebody asked earlier if you had the shingle shot. Is it beneficial to take it even after you've had shingles, or is it too late? Will it prevent it?
I don't know. I would guess that I'm not even going to guess. I don't know.
How about you, Paul?
I actually don't know, but one thing I do know is that it can come back at any time, but in a much milder form. I think my shingles returned once or twice, but was for a day or so, and the pain was much less. Okay. But no doctor ever suggested that I get another shot. So it might be now that you can get it at any time, but I don't really know.
So well, I did, Jake. I did it.
Say again.
My doctor told me to, after my case of shingles, I did get a shingles shot last year, post shingles, and the new shot is called Shingrix, Grex.
Yep.
And it's a two-shot thing where you get it once, and then 6 months later you get the second one, and they're different shots. And behold, I got a reaction from the second shot. I got a very mild but very normal case of shingles from the second shot. It wasn't overbearing. It didn't debilitate me at all, but it was enough that I noticed, and I called the company up and reported it, and they said yes, some people do get reactions to it, and they took my information down, and I had a good talk with the company about it. But, so I did it, but I'm not sure I should have.
Doctors have told me that the shingles vaccine includes a live agent, and for someone with a impaired immune system like me, it wouldn't be advisable to take it. So I would only be able to get it if my immune system returns to full strength.
I would agree there.
I did get the shingles shot a couple years ago before the new one came out, because one of my wife's daycare kids came in with measles. So the doctor suggested we both get the shot. And then, like Peter said, there's a newer one out that's even better. So.
But be careful. It is a live agent, as Thibault was just saying. And yeah. I picked up something from it, even though I'd had shingles before.
Especially if you have a reduced immune system. Yeah, that makes sense.
With low blood counts, yeah.
Thibault, how's your hemoglobin levels?
That also has been low ever since my bone marrow transplant. Not extremely low, but it's below the normal range.
I mean, are you below 10 or like somewhere around there?
I don't remember.
Okay, no worries. A couple of thoughts I have for you. One thought I have for you. Are you taking American ginseng?
I have some that I was using as a tea in the morning for a while, but I got out of the habit. I still have it.
I would recommend it. I think definitely you can use it as a tea. I think it also comes in a supplement. Some of the guys may know, but I know that several people who have used it that have been regulars on our call have felt that they got a real energy boost from it. Anybody have experience with American ginseng on the call?
I take it every day in an eyedropper form, half a teaspoon.
Okay.
I don't know if my energy is related to that or not, but I've been doing it for a number of years.
Okay.
It's important to take the American version. There's a Korean or something other version that's not as good. The American is the one that you want to take.
Right.
Right, and not just the American, the one that's, because it's grown in more than one place, but you want the Wisconsin ginseng, Thibaut.
Yeah, I do have that. I'm looking at my blood test results now. My hemoglobin is 10.3.
Yeah, right on the margin. I mean, the good news is that having done the lutetium, you're at 10.3, because that also can compromise you a little bit. But that's why you're feeling weak. And, you know, you're probably right on the margin of getting a pint of blood. And that would make you feel a heck of a lot better. So 1 unit of blood. So that's something that you could talk to the docs about. But I mean, that's why you're feeling so washed out, is my guess.
They've had me taking iron.
They have you taking iron? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know, again, has anybody on the call gotten a blood infusion? Okay. Well, a lot of the guys have. We don't have anybody right now, but you know, a lot of guys have gotten that blood infusion, and they feel way better for it. And most of them, it's been when their hemoglobin has been between about 8 and 10, and I forget what and usually their red counts and their white counts are just below normal at that point too. But there's so many reasons why. I mean, you've been on ADT for so long, and there's all kinds of reasons that could make you anemic. So it's worth a discussion with your docs when you next talk to them, and try and see if you get a pick-me-up from the American ginseng.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. I'll start taking it again.
Okay. Okay, I put a link in the chat window a few minutes ago. And for those of you who are on the phone, it's pretty easy to find, and some of you may have heard it, but I don't know if anybody listened to Fresh Air yesterday. Terry Gross was talking to I forget the guy's name, but he is a medical ethicist at Johns Hopkins, and he had a really, really serious motorbike accident where he practically lost his foot, and was on opioids for a very long time. And so a lot of the discussion is about opioids and how you tail off them. And one of the really interesting things that I learned is that the doctors that prescribe the opioids will not take responsibility for weaning you off the opioids. So you have to titrate down. Originally, they were talking about 10% per week, then they go to 5% per week. The CDC issued some guidelines earlier this year, but it's a very interesting, it's worth a listen, because what this fellow went through, his pain docs wouldn't help him, his surgeon gave him bad advice, or his surgeon wouldn't help him, his plastic surgeon gave him bad advice, his PCP wouldn't help him. Nobody wanted to help him on how to get off the opioids. And I know that we've had many guys that take opiates for good reason on this call. And if their pain subsides, they may want to get themselves off of it. So, like I say, the URL is in the chat box, and if not, you can go to Fresh Air on the NPR website for July the 8th, and the title is called Quitting Opioids Alone. This guy just wrote a book. His name is Travis Reeder, Rieder. And let's see if I see the name of the book. I don't see the name of the book that quick. In Pain. The name of the book is In Pain. So a bioethicist personal struggle with opioids. I mean, he even went to an outside clinic, sort of opioid heroin clinic, and they said they couldn't help him because that wasn't their function. They were there to help people that were addicts, and he felt he was an addict. So I just wanted to bring that up.
I'll check it out. I am in the process of trying to reduce my opioids now that the lutetium has reduced my cancer pain, and my laminectomy pain has mysteriously gone away.
Did you hear this yesterday, Thibault?
No, but I'll check it out.
Yeah, definitely listen to it. I mean, she gave him the whole show, so but it's really worth listening to, and maybe it's even worth reading the book if you like what you hear. Have you tried? I'm curious. Have you talked to any of your docs about titrating off of the opioids?
No, I'm just doing it on my own. I've reduced my oxycodone by about 50%, and once I've eliminated that one, then I'll start reducing my methadone.
Okay. Well, listen to what he says. He talked specifically about that, and I would also think he's accessible, especially since you've been a Hopkins patient. Oh, if you call Sam Denmead, he'll put you directly in touch with him, I bet. If you would like to. He sounds like a great guy.
Yeah,
so,
I'll do that.
And what he did say was that he had to have a sick surgery a couple of years later, and he was back on the opioids again. He said at this time he pulled rank, and he spoke to some guys at Hopkins, and they were really, really helpful to him as to how to get him off. So, we've got ways that you've got ways, we've got ways that we probably could get you at least to Travis Reeder, if not the same doc. So definitely follow through on that and let us know how you do.
Okay, thanks.
Pleasure. Okay, Peter, you're up. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I muted you because we were getting feedback from you. I could hear myself coming back from you.
Yeah, this goes back to how we opened up, and I know we've talked about this before, but I can't remember the discussion that's come up before. I guess my question is, what is the only way you can get Firmagon is through the gut, or and why is it through the gut, or can you get the shot in the butt or anyplace else? That's essentially my question, because that's why, at least that's why I know myself and probably many other people shy away from Firmagon.
It is given in the abdomen. I don't know. I've never heard of it given in other spots. Unlike Lupron, I know Lupron is given in the butt, the hip, and sometimes and it's also given in the shoulder. Has anybody who's been on Firmagon ever gotten it anywhere else? Okay.
Yeah. It's just uncomfortable there. It feels like you've got, golf balls in your butt, on either side of your belly button. It's just
Yeah, I agree, Peter. I had that. That was my initial treatment before I went on the Lupron, and it was very uncomfortable. It did exactly. It looks like you had two halves of a tennis ball underneath your abdomen, there, right about your belt line. And the only thing I could find that make myself a little more comfortable is I went out and bought myself some briefs that were, I mean, really brief, like bikini brief type things. So that went below where they were. And then I got like athletic shorts and an extra large size, so they've got elastic band, and I put that over the top above them. So they were left kind of, with no pressure on them. But I'll tell you, I still have, this was 3 years ago, and I'm in those areas, I am still sensitive to like itching every once in a while or something, But yeah, I mean, it's just another one of those things I think, you have to do when you get started, not to get the tumor flare. And, but I just would not stay on it for any length of time if you didn't have to, and just switch over to Lupron.
Yeah, well, the reason it came up was we opened up the discussion with talking about a blog Len put out today or yesterday about the fact that Lupron has lower incidence of heart issues than Firmagon does than Lupron.
Yeah, I think Rick mentioned this, but I would really look at that study and see really how valid it is. I know previously when I looked into, I was having some heart issues, and then I talked to my oncologist. You think this is from the Lupron? He said, not very likely if you haven't had any problems, before you started Lupron. And but he said, okay, if you want, go ahead, get the full cardio workup on the treadmill and all that kind of stuff. And I did, and because I was having a little skipping in my heart, but the cardiologist finally said you were probably overdiagnosed with a mitral valve prolapse. He said that in years past that was highly overdiagnosed. So he says the amount that you have your beat is off a little bit occasionally, but it's not really skipping. It's maybe just out of sync or something. And he says you're good. You passed all the tests and you don't have any problem. So I'd be skeptical if it's a small number. And what was their individual history of all of the individuals that were included in the test? Did they screen them out for previous cardiac problems or?
Right. I mean, we just saw the abstract. I don't know if we have access to the full journal article, but as with all these studies, you got to read the fine print to really know. And sometimes people only read the headlines. So
yeah, many times they're just observational type of a study, and not necessarily a cause and effect.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I certainly agree. Peter, did you want to follow up?
No, that was just my question. I was wondering if there's another way to get Firmagon. I know it's a monthly shot. There's no 3-month shot or 4-month shot or anything like that. And so
Peter, hey, when Len is on the call next time, you might want to check with him, because I think he mentioned that he had the same problems with Firmagon, and I think he found a way to lessen them, the lumps. I don't know exactly what he did, but you check with him next time he's on the call.
Paul, you were just mentioning that you're on Firmagon, right?
Paul? No, I'm Lupron.
Oh,
I'm in the Lupron holiday, but I never had Firmagon.
okay. I thought someone was just mentioning they had a Firmagon shot.
Dennis said he was, but he switched back to Lupron.
Oh,
this was during the with placebo.
this is Jay. I have a Firmagon shot every month, and I
Okay.
actually switched over. I'm about 14 months on it now. I switched over to Lupron for just 2 months, and frankly, I had less. My sweats were not as bad with Firmagon, so I switched back, and I'd rather suffer the a couple of days of bad pain at the injection site than and then after about 4 days it calms down a bit and is not so noticeable, and by mid-month it's about gone, and so you have 2 weeks of not feeling any problems with the injection site. The thing that does help a lot is to stay out of the sun. If you get this first couple of days, just don't get overheated, and keep an ice pad on a bottle of ice water on it. That helps the most, and just on and off 20 minutes at a time, ice bottle on the belly for 2 days, and then you're sort of out of the woods.
So in other words, it sounds, Jay, like you found a good way to manage that abdominal shot.
Yeah, I just make sure I do it on Friday. I get it on Friday so that I can have downtime Saturday, Sunday, once a month. And I just know that's going to be downtime, and I actually get some other things done. I nap, lay around, and watch television, work on the computer. And the other thing is about the injection site question. I've inquired about that in talking with doctors and nurses, that the reason they do it in the belly is that is a place where you don't sit on your belly. You don't use your belly like you do your shoulder and so forth. It is actually one of the places where you do have some subcutaneous fat that they can get up underneath and have a place to have a depot that does not cause, because it is so painful to tissue, that you don't want it to be like in your seat or in your hip. There's really just not another spot on your body that's like that. If they put it in the back of your arm where you do have a fat deposit, or a portion of your leg, those two would be flexed a lot and be painful. That's the explanation I've heard, is that is the best place.
Okay, that answers the questions. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Jay. Now, I have heard, but it might be in other countries, antagonist. I think it might be called a Barrelix. Firmagon is Degarelix, and this one is called a Barrelix, and the brand name is Plenaxis, Plenaxis. And I don't know, there may be other antagonists that are available in this country, just like there are several agonists. And it could be just like with the agonists, that if there are, they are injected in different sites. So somebody may want to do the research to see if there's an alternative to Firmagon Degarelix. Okay. All right, Jay, did you want to say something? You're a little muffled.
No, I don't have any other comments, other than it sure would be nice if there were a way around that. That sounds promising, that a Barrelix may be a possibility. Okay.
All right. I think that I think I saw that Mr. Jackson joined us. Is there any truth to that rumor?
There was, but he left.
Oh, there was, but he left.
Yes.
I see. Okay. That's a pity. I wanted to say hello.
Did he close the door behind him?
Looks like he did, because we don't see his name anywhere on here. Okay, Jake. What was on your mind?
Oh, me?
Yes, you.
Just a quick update. You know, I know you guys are sick of hearing about me.
We are not.
Two things. First of all, I'm in the process of working to get Foundation One genomic test. Working with them and my doctor. Hopefully, I'll get it within the next month, if at the earliest. Hopefully by the end of this month. And then the other thing is, I finally got my my Xtandi stopped working. So my doctor's switching me to abiraterone, and the insurance company said use the generic. So, you know, fine, because the Zytiga is out of patent now, so the generic is the way to go. And just for anybody who's interested, for comparison, I asked my specialty pharmacy what it costs, and it's $11,666 and 66 cents for the generic.
11,000 for the generic. My goodness.
For what period of time? How many
Say
doses?
again, Dennis?
How many doses is that?
30 days.
Oh, that's too much. That's more
That's
than
a lot of money. You know, I don't know
more than
I don't know if there's the full price Zytiga cost, but that's still a hell of a lot of money. I mean, I'm fortunate. I'm fortunate my insurance company is going to pay all but $50.
Well, mine is $520 some for a month's supply on Zytiga.
Are you getting the regular Zytiga or the generic?
Regular.
Now, is that what you
That's
pay?
through Humana. That's through Humana, though. That's the Part D drug plan that I have with Humana, and then we use the Humana specialty compound pharmacy where they put it together.
You know, you might want to ask Dennis about the generic. It might be a little bit cheaper. I don't know. I did go online to see about financial assistance, and I'm not qualified because I have federal insurance. But
well, did you say
$50 I can handle. I can deal with $50.
I thought you said $11,606 and 66 cents.
$11,666 and I'm sorry, $11,664.66. That's what the specialty pharmacy quoted me.
For 1 month? For 1 month?
30 day.
Yeah, that's the guys. Let's just get something clear. Jake's talking about the sticker price. He's not talking about what he's got to pay.
Right.
He's paying $50 now. Dennis, the $500, is that your copay each month?
That's my copay, yes.
Okay. So do you know what the sticker price is on the abiraterone?
Not off the top of my head, no, I do not.
Now, it seems to me that with a $500 sticker price, a copay, you should be moving through your donut hole pretty soon, and then you won't be paying anything more.
Yeah, it drops down.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Still a lot of money every month. Have
About
you
3,000
tried talking to, is it Pfizer that makes it, Rick?
It's Janssen.
Janssen.
Have you
Janssen.
talked to them? Have you talked to them about financial assistance?
I wouldn't qualify for the financial assistance that was offered to look into it.
You're
Jake?
independently wealthy, so you wouldn't qualify, huh?
Well, I wouldn't say that, but you don't have to have too much income to not qualify.
That's right.
Jake, do you have a federal Blue Cross Blue Shield plan?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so do I. When I started Zytiga, they told me, and then they sent me to this this assistance program, and I got it down to $10 a month. So all last year, I paid $10 a month for my copay for straight Zytiga.
That was for the full the
I've got
original.
federal Blue Cross Blue. I've got federal Blue Cross Blue Shield as well.
I don't know. It's just, apparently they said that's what they pretty much dictate where you can go now. Was the generic available when you took it, Peter?
No.
You're still taking it, right?
What's that?
Are you still taking it?
No, I stopped in just the first of the year.
Oh.
So here's what I would suggest. Peter, if you can send the details of that assistance program to Jake, if you could find it. And Jake, you may find today that it could be cheaper for you to take not the generic, but get to take the Zytiga and this assistance program, if you want to pursue that.
Right.
Because if it was available for Peter through February of this year, I don't see why it wouldn't be available to you 4 or 5 months later.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Right. Well, it does to me, because a lot of these folks, they don't have always the right answers and they don't know. And there may be plans available that they don't know about. They should know about them, but they don't. That's why we have these calls, because we can, as peers, we can compare experiences. This is a perfect example of someone else who's on a federal Blue Cross Blue Shield and doing a lot better than you found. Not a lot, but enough.
Right. I didn't pursue it, but I'm assuming that the reason, I'm assuming that Blue Cross didn't want to pay the full price for the Zytiga now that the generic is available, so it's costing them less. I'm assuming that. I don't know that, but I'm assuming that the regular
there are two things there,
is like
Jake.
13,000 or so.
Yeah.
Say again, Rick. I'm sorry.
There are two things there. First of all, I don't know what the full price of the Zytiga is to Blue Cross Blue Shield. None of us would know that, because they won't tell you. They only tell you the number they want you to know, which is the number that's been approved by Medicare, of which you're responsible for 20%. So we don't know what their contracted price is with Janssen or with the generic manufacturer. Secondly,
Medicare doesn't cover any of it.
No.
Not for me, anyway.
I thought, I guess you have to have your own drug plan, right, for it to be eligible.
Yeah. I had A and B with secondary insurance of Federal Blue Cross.
When we were at PCR last year, didn't Janssen have some kind of a computer program where you could plug in your state? Good
memory.
I don't know what.
You're right. They did. Was it Janssen?
Yes, it was Janssen. It was Janssen.
Okay. Yeah.
It's worth calling them. I know they have a helpline. If you look on the computer, Janssen does have a financial assistance number you can call. But they do have a computer program that is set up state by state, too.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. They did. I forgot all about that. I don't even know where I could start. I'm sure I bookmarked it somewhere, but I don't even know where to start looking for it. And my friend Caroline just went on vacation for 2 weeks. Although I have a call scheduled with her in late July. Well, Jake, I don't know what to say. You know, there is, I don't know why I was thinking that on these Medicare plans, you're responsible for 20%, because I think it does depend on which drug plan you're on as to what percentage you're responsible for.
Well, normally with my secondary Blue Cross, you know, I have A and B Medicare, and they cover 80% of like shots and doctor's visits and all that. And then the secondary picks up the difference. Normally, medications are 80% through Blue Cross, but for some reason they picked up all but $35 of the Zytiga. I mean, the Xtandi that I was on. I'm still I'm on until another 2 more days, and then I got $35 copay assistance from the company. Now, again, I'm pretty happy that Blue Cross is going to pay all but $50. I will check out the Janssen thing to see what it would cost me, but you know, Blue Cross may say no. We don't want you to take regular Zytiga anymore. We want you to take the generic. So. The only way I can get I might be able to get the doctor to specify. There's a code DW1, which I found out the other day, that specifies no generics. So that's cool.
All right. Well, Peter, if you can ship Jake whatever information you have, and if you do have that website for Janssen, let him have it. If not, I'm sure you can get it through the Janssen site or the patient, and see what you come up with.
Just one other point of interest, for anybody who's interested, is the maker of the generic is Mylan, MYLAN.
Right. And what's the name of the generic again?
They just call it abiraterone acetate.
Yeah, it has a name that we always referred to it as when it was going through the tests.
Oh, yeah, right.
Yonza,
yeah. That doesn't say on here Yonza. It says abiraterone acetate. No mention of Yonza.
I have a quick question. I was under the impression that Zytiga is a secondary drug which you take before you have to go to chemotherapy. Is that true?
Not really. It's not really.
I just did a search on the internet, you know, for the Janssen, and it said specifically that it's for people who have already had chemotherapy containing docetaxel. So I've had on the impression for a long time that you take either enzalutamide or Zytiga, and when both of those fail, after Lupron's failed, then you need to go either Provenge or something else, but then you go on to chemotherapy. But that's not what this Google is saying. So, Rick, you said that's not necessarily true, huh?
No.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we talk about this all the time on this call, Paul. It's a lot more nuanced than that today. The sequencing is much, much more nuanced. Now, the first thing I would recommend you do is go to our website, go to the prostate cancer page, and at the bottom on the left-hand side, there's a link to resources. And if you click on that link, you'll bring up a whole bunch of webinars, okay? One of those webinars, which is one we put up recently, is I want to pull it up here so that I can tell you exactly. Hold on, groups, prostate cancer. And resources. It says at the bottom on the left-hand side, it'll say, click here for a complete list of prostate cancer resources. If you go to that and you scroll down to advanced treatments, one up from the bottom is something that says sequencing advanced treatments and it's a conversation between Chuck Ryan, Neil Shore, and Alicia Morgan. It's about, from memory, about 12, 14 minutes long. So it's quite easy to listen to. And that will give you a much better handle.
Okay.
We should all know by now, you can't believe everything you read on the internet.
Well, that was
you Google. So, what you Google comes with interpretation. For a long time, well, since 2011 or 2012, we recognize that early chemotherapy has a benefit. And the question is, do you do chemo before the second-line anti-androgen or the second-line anti-androgen before chemo? Second-line anti-androgens would be Xtandi, Zytiga, Erleader. Those are the ones that are approved right now, and darolutamide, which probably will get approved sometime this year. If you look again in those same advanced treatments, and the second one down says Zytiga, Xtandi, or chemo first. And that's another discussion with Alicia Morgan's Chuck Ryan, but this time with Chris Sweeney. And that, from memory, is probably about 2 years old now. And at that time, they tended to feel that chemo was best first, but though it was a bit of a toss-up, you could do the second-line anti-androgens first. And frankly, it was a function of the man. And if you had a man who was willing to do the chemo, fine. If he wasn't willing to do the chemo, he could do the abiraterone or the enzalutamide first. What we now seem to think is that it's really more a function of how aggressive your cancer is. So if you have very aggressive Mets where it's spreading quickly and your PSA is marching, they feel it's better to do the chemotherapy before you do the enzalutamide and the abiraterone. If, on the other hand, your disease is a slow disease, slow progression, like yours is, Paul, they feel you're better off going with one of the second-line anti-androgens first.
Yeah.
But rather than my sort of rehashing and possibly not restating it exactly, I really encourage you, that's why we put them, listen to these short presentations by these really top doctors who are discussing exactly these issues.
Okay.
As far as what you see on the internet, some of that relates to the original approval. And it might well be that when abiraterone was originally approved, it was approved for after chemo. But I can't remember now, and in any event, that's not how the insurance companies are approving it. I mean, Jake hasn't had chemo, and he's had access to Xtandi and to abiraterone. As far as Provenge is concerned, no, I mean, we say time and time again, don't leave Provenge late, do it earlier. So when you say to me, oh, well, when this doesn't work and that doesn't work, then we go to Provenge. No, no, no. Provenge you can get if you have 3 successive increases of your PSA whilst you're on ADT. That's what Ken said earlier in the session. There's no argument. It's approved. So if your PSA is rising and you've been on or are on an ADT, then the earlier you get the Provenge, the better it's going to serve you. Don't put it off. We don't know exactly what it does, but we are pretty sure it helps. And the earlier you get it, the better, the more good it's going to do you.
What's the qualification for? Forgot.
The qualification for what?
Provenge. There's certain PSA.
Successive increases in your PSA whilst you're on ADT.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Jake, are you listening still?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
Okay, write this down. You want to go to My Prostate Cancer Roadmap. It's a site that Janssen puts out, and if you navigate through that, there's all kinds of information about financial assistance programs for state by state, all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
My Prostate Cancer Roadmap.
All one word, right?
Yeah, all one word. And whilst you're there, watch the video, watch the Rob video.
Yeah. Anyway, great information there about help for drug program plans and everything.
What video?
Thank you, Peter.
The video of Rob. They made a video of Rob.
Rob and
Rob.
Patty.
What?
Rob and Patty.
Yeah.
Rob and Patty.
Rob and Patty.
And Packy.
His wife,
Rob
Patty.
and his wife, Patty.
Oh, Rob and Patty. Okay.
Yeah.
They made a beautiful video of Rob, Baniscus, and Patty. And it's featured right at the opening of that, right up front on that My Prostate Cancer Roadmap. And thanks for reminding us, Peter, where that was. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I've actually been there before. I watched the video of Rob.
Okay.
I'll check it out again.
Yeah, watch it again. It's good for the soul.
Just search around for patient services and financial aid, and you'll come to all kinds of information there. It's pretty extensive.
Okay.
So, so any questions on the sequencing for advanced treatment? Okay. All right, guys. We are done at just 7 minutes over today, so we're getting better. I thought we were going to get in under the wire until Paul asked me that question. But we're only 7 minutes over, so that's not too bad.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So next meeting is the 15th. Monday the 15th is the next is the next meeting. And let's see, do we have any other, Jake, do we have any other meetings for our guys between now and then? Don't think so. I don't think so.
I don't think the I don't think Rich Jackson's thing is on yet.
No, that's the third week. Okay. Oh,
Do we have anything planned for the 5th Monday at all this month?
yes, we do. And I've got to create the web page for it, which I want to do this week, but I've also got to get a grant request into Foundation Medicine, which takes priority, because I have to get it in before David Marshak goes on his paternity sabbatical. The title will be The Language of Cancer, and we will be talking about, and hopefully we'll have a good crew, lots of different cancers. We want to put it out widely. If you would, Peter, let the people at Pacific Cancer Foundation know once the website's up. And we're going to be talking about using words like survivor and cure and warrior. It's going to be moderated by Richard Wassersug. We will have Howard Walensky, Jamie Ayton, who is a colorectal cancer, stage 4 colorectal cancer survivor and has written on this. He's a professor at Wheaton College. And then another friend of mine, a woman who's a psychiatrist and treats a lot of cancer patients. And so hopefully we'll get a good crew for all of this. And that will be on the 29th of the month. Okay?
Monday at 8 o'clock.
8 o'clock, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Monday, 8 o'clock, July the 29th. And hopefully we'll have a web page up on it when I can get to it.
Okay, good night, guys.
Good night, everybody.
All right. Good night, everyone. Take care.
Good night.